All right, guys, welcome back to another video. If you're new to the channel, my name is Sean. I make videos on self-publishing and Amazon KDP and related topics like that. So welcome to the video. So today we have a different kind of video. Obviously, we got a special guest on the call. So a lot of you guys requested a Amazon ad tutorial in my previous videos. So today I wanted to do exactly that. I brought on a Amazon ad specialist that literally spends millions of dollars in ads a year. And we're just going to do a Q&A style where I'm going to ask him questions and go over the most common, struggles that you guys encounter with your Amazon ad journey and how to overcome that. So with that being said, I got Yvonne on the line. Yvonne, how are you doing?
Very
Wait,
well,
hold
thank
on.
you. Pleasure speaking with you, Sean.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for being here. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are, because you started with publishing too, right? You're kind of running ads for other people as a service right now, but you started with publishing and then you kind of transition into that. So can you tell us a little bit about like that journey and how you got started?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I started with publishing back in 2017 and focused on that entirely for about 3 years, learning all about the KDP side and the Audible side. In that time, in the 3 years, publishing 43 books, and of course, some of them were low content, medium, high content. Just tried a lot of stuff. Many of them failed, didn't do very well at the beginning when I was just learning the ropes, and then got better and better as I learned more. And of course, in the end, encountered Amazon ads, tried it, got a little bit of success, and then thought, well, okay, if this is working a little bit, I need to do more of this, then did more and more and more. And by 2020, by the end, I'd made it to 10K in net profits, both of our KDP and ACX combined. But at that point, I had over like 400 campaigns for all of my books, just getting so overwhelmed with tracking everything and spending so much time on managing all those campaigns. So if I would focus on them, they would do well. But then I have like no time to do anything else in the business. And by the time I've tweaked all the bids and looked at everything, it was time to. I had a regular job at that time as well, so juggling lots of balls at the same time. So I thought, well, there has to be a better way to manage all of these campaigns. I can't be the first person to have this sort of issue. So I went out, had a look in the marketplace to say, okay, are there other services or softwares that can manage so many campaigns? And tried a bunch of them. In the end, I actually tried 9 different softwares and couldn't quite get exactly what I wanted. The customizability wasn't quite there, or the data wasn't syncing, all sorts of issues. And then ended up programming my own software, which has now evolved into the AdsDroid software and service that I offer professionally.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And it's nice to hear that you actually hit 10K a month from your own publishing business, because obviously if somebody's going to work with you and outsource their ad service, they don't want to just work with some random dude that doesn't have any experience on their own KDP business, right? You want to hire an expert who's done it themselves. So AdsDroid is a service that I do talk about once in a while in my channel. I used you guys, in the past as well. So what are the other, like before you created AdsDroid, right? You said you tested out a bunch of different tools to try and, run Amazon ads for you. But like, can you name a few? 'Cause I think I've heard of a few as well, but most of them are for FBA. It's not really for KDP, right? So like, what are
Yeah,
the ones that you try?
sure, sure. So the very first one I tried was PrestaZone, and then I
Mm.
think probably won't be able to name all of them, but Perpetua and BidX, AdBadger. What was it? Let's see. There was it AdSpurt, and then Celix. What else was there? There was one. I think it's about 5 or 6. Can't recall all of them. There was definitely and oh, of course, the Helium 10 one.
Mm.
What's that one called? Um, Helium
I think
10
like
has. We'll have to
ad
find a link for it. But yeah, the one that Helium 10 provides as well. Tried that as well, and a couple more. But yes,
So what do you
the
say is like the difference between Amazon FBA ad management tool and a KDP specific ad management tool?
Well, it's the data that you would need access to. A lot of the tools have, since I started looking for an option, have added the KMP royalties and page reads, etc., to their data sync with Amazon. So initially that wasn't an option, where they have come, I mean, they have certainly gotten better, but the ability to understand, the printing costs, to track prices and the break-even cost, etc., but that's specific to books, of course, to be able to understand how the ebook margins and ebook break-even ACOS would differ from your paperback and other formats. And it's looking at the difference in margin that you would have between a normal FBA software and the approach that you would need to take with KDP. So it's just the understanding of how aggressive you should be at different points, and the differences in launch strategy, where you may have a much longer time horizon for a FBA launch than for a KDP launch. So it's the ability to have the data in one place so that you don't need to like calculate and recalculate it and have like need to go down to a very like low level, like very, very detailed level of understanding of, okay, I need to tweak the software specifically in this way to make it match KDP. It's much better just to have a KDP centric software where like all the defaults are KDP specific.
That makes sense. So you built Azroid, which is the only KDP specific ad management software that I know, or probably on the market, right? Because I really don't know anywhere any other ones. And so you built it for yourself, but it worked well. And so you started offering it as a service to other publishers. Now you built it up to the point where you've been doing this for a couple of years. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're doing $2.5 million a year total in ad spend across like all the platforms, or I'm sorry, the accounts that you're managing. Is that correct?
Yep, that's exactly correct. So we take it on an annual basis, of course. A large portion of it is within the US as the biggest market. Yes, if we total everything up, convert it into USD, it's 2.5 over the last 12 months. And of course, it's continuing to grow. So over the next 12 months, I'm sure it'll go up.
Yeah, that's crazy though. 2.5 million. So, I mean, you've seen it all, and so you're the perfect guy to ask if there's any Amazon ad questions. And that's exactly why I have you on the call here. So now I kind of want to get into the questions and struggles, like, beginner publishers experience with Amazon ads. So I want to start off with asking you, like, what do you see based on your clients and others, the biggest struggles most publishers have with their ads?
Of course, I mean, I've worked with low, medium content publishers, with fiction, non-fiction, as you said. I've been there, done that, seen it all. So the biggest pain points or struggles or misconceptions, I would say that come from the complexity of Amazon ads, where you will need to spend time to understand the different match types, like how you should launch a book, etc. So there's inherently a lot of complexity to it. So, of course, people will want to simplify it as much as possible. Of course, this is exactly what we would like to do here today. It can be done simply, but you just need to pick out the right few points to focus on. So normally I see people focus on ACOS too much, because they will want just to have this one number. If I just understand and get this one magic number right, then everything is going to go well. Well, just focusing on getting your ACOS to like 20% or 30%, whatever that low number may be for you, without understanding your break-even ACOS, it could be 20%, it could be 40% or higher. So depending on that, and depending on how mature your book is, where if you've just launched it last week versus if you launched it 6 months ago, your goals and ACOS targets will be different. So it's not the best advice to go in and focus on, I just want a 20% ACOS. Well, that may not actually give you the best net profits, which is what I focus on. So
Gotcha.
they may be using, sorry, you wanted to follow up with that?
I was going to just ask you, like, what would be a case where you would not look at the ACOS and like intentionally go above ACOS? Like, what would be those situations?
Of course, as the first example I had, if you published your book last week, then you probably should not be focusing too much on your ACOS, where you want to get as many sales as possible. You want to increase the indexing from on the ad side, and of course on the organic side, because that's very key. We want to get as many organic sales as possible, get your organic ranking up. So there, we just want to prove to Amazon that this is a book that's going to sell, that people are going to leave reviews. It's basically going to be a good product for them to push, because many people don't realize this. Amazon actually wants you to make a sale, which is sort of nice to know, where they want you to have a good product. They want you to have, all the customers to have a good experience, and to come back and leave lots of good reviews, so that, because they make more money off of a sale of a product than off of a few clicks that you're going to pay them for your ads. So the beginning stages, focusing on getting as many sales as possible. ACOS is going to be higher than your break even. Okay, maybe going up to sort of 60-80% maybe in the first month is acceptable, as long as you get lots of sales initially, lots of reviews, establish your book, and then after you get out of this sort of 1 month honeymoon period, you can start to focus on getting the ACOS down and focusing on profitability.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So essentially going through like a launch period for the first 30 days, since you got the honeymoon period boost, you're trying to get as many sales and reviews as possible, even if you're taking a loss a little bit, right? And
Yep.
so you can rank the book, get more organic sales coming in after that. And then from the ad side, you're going to optimize it to profitability from month 2 and later on. So that's when you start focusing on the ACOS, right?
Yes, precisely. Of course, keeping track of the net profits is key, because what I've noticed and done quite significant testing on is just focusing on getting your ACOS down lower than break even, because then you're making money on the ads portion. It doesn't always give you the overall best net profitability. So you have to keep track of your, well, essentially like the money in and money out equation, not only focusing on efficiency, because you may inadvertently hamper your organic ranking and sales and end up with a lower number net overall if you just focus on getting the ACOS down even afterwards. So it's something that you should always keep an eye on.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're saying that sometimes, obviously it's case by case, but you could have an account that's doing 20% ACOS, thinking it's super good, but the total revenue that you're seeing is, let's say, $5,000. Compared to that, if you would have increased the ACOS to 40% by spending a little more, going more aggressive, the total revenue could have increased to like 10K, and you would have made more money going for that 40% ACOS because you're ranking more keywords or whatever, right? You're indirectly increasing organic ranking as well, right?
Exactly. Because all of that detail that you've just given us is only looking at half the equation, only looking at the ads portion. Nothing has been said about the organic side, which is vital at this point in time. And that will definitely be higher if you are at the 40 example, thereby giving you better net profits, because that's really what we're interested in.
For sure.
So the royalties.
So that makes sense. And, that's something I feel like a lot of people make a mistake by only focusing on the ACOS and how much they're directly making back from ads, without realizing that they're making a lot more organic side that's not showing up in their ad dashboard. And, so they ignore that side. But when I talk about this, right, when I talk about the whole like spending ads during launch to rank the book, so organic sales come in and stuff like that in my other videos, I get so many comments of people saying that you have to spend thousands of dollars during launch to rank the book. And Amazon ads is expensive, KDP is expensive. It's not viable for people who don't have a ton of money. What would you say to those people? Is it true that you have to spend thousands, or is there cases where you can spend a lot less but still utilize Amazon ads and still rank the book, but in a more cost efficient way?
Of course, I've worked with people who will have a $500 a month budget, and others $5,000 a month budget, or even higher than this. So I think there are strategies for every budget, there are strategies for every book type. So yes, of course, ideally, you would have an infinite budget. You can just spend as much as you want on Amazon ads and get the best ranking on every keyword. How viable is that? Not so much. So if we have a limited budget and we'd like to launch the book, then of course there are strategies. We would like to focus on lower clicks and higher relevancy. So trying to get the best of both worlds, because Amazon will focus more on highly relevant keywords. So they will want you to associate your book with the main keywords. Of course, this is why you talk about getting the main keywords in the title and the description, the A+ content, and the backend keywords, etc., on the channel. And so these are the keywords that we would like to target. So if we cannot target hundreds and hundreds of keywords, it's probably not even the best practice anymore. Focus on the few 5 to 15 major keywords that are in your title, your subtitle, like the main words that people would choose when they were searching for your book. So this easy way to check, of course, is just to go in the Amazon search bar and type in the first few letters or words of your keyword and make sure that it actually comes up in the suggestions. Are people actually typing these words in? Use those words and you would set up a broad match campaign. So I'll go over the structure of what I would actually do if I had a limited budget. So a bit more practical. Getting my 5 to 15 keywords, I would set up a broad match campaign, because usually broad match is going to give you cheaper clicks than going exact. It may not be that very specific keyword, the difference between broad and exact match, but if we're focusing on limited budget and really optimizing our use of each click, then broad match, just one campaign, nice and easy to manage, and down only bidding strategy. And just leaving the monthly or the daily budget at 20, that's fine. And focusing on the main keywords, which you've researched, which are in your title. So then that's the keyword strategy. Then I would also create on the keyword side what I would call GP, gold panning campaigns, which are very similar to the lottery campaign, which some of you may be familiar with, where we have, so my default approach with the gold panning is essentially a very large, very low risk, low maintenance campaign where you would have 4, 5, 6, maybe even 1,000, so hundreds or even 1,000 keywords, where you would just have single word, broad match at fixed bids, with the bid being somewhere between 5 and 10 cents, just to be completely safe. Save it, set it down for 5 cents, and add words which appear in your title, in your description, or perhaps even in the descriptions of your competitors. So like still use relevant words. We don't want to have just random dictionary words in there, but we want to give a very large selection at a very low click, very low CPC. But I'll then allow Amazon to pick the best ones for us. And the results from those types of campaigns have been pretty phenomenal, considering the fact that they don't really require any maintenance. So usually you would be able to get something like a 20 to 30% ACOS without really doing any maintenance on them. So you set them up once, and you can put every one of your ASINs, every one of your books in there. It doesn't exactly matter that you have multiple books per campaign, and essentially just let it go. It will slowly gather clicks, and of course we're focusing on low budget here. So we've got the keyword strategy done, then we've got the product. So look up your sort of 10 to 15 most closely related products and start with low bids in a product targeting campaign, something like a 30-cent bid, and then you can start up from there.
So let me get this straight, because this is the #1 question that I get. I recently did a poll on my channel asking people, like, what is the biggest question you have when it comes to Amazon ad? And the #1 question obviously is, how do I do Amazon ads with low budget? So this is a strategy that you just mentioned is 3 campaigns, right? 1 keyword, highly relevant campaign with about 15 super relevant keywords. So if your title is keto, then you're going after like ketogenic diet related keywords that the Amazon suggestions in the search bar. You just pick those keywords. You target that, broad match, down only bid. What are the CPC like starting bid that you recommend?
30 cents initially, I think, is a good place to start for both the broad match and the product targeting campaigns, and then slowly increase from there. 3 to 5 cents every few days, depending on whether you're getting any traffic. So if you set them up and nothing happens, your bid may be too low, and then you can start to edge it up slowly, but not go above. I think the upper limit I would set is something like 1.2, $1.20 for most books, just as a default value.
Got it. So starting with 30 cents. And so once again, this is like highly relevant keywords. So if your title is keto, then you're going for like keto, ketogenic diet cookbook, ketogenic diet recipes, keto recipes, those kind of things, right? So that's one campaign. And then you got another product campaign targeting relevant products, which if your book is keto, then you just look up keto on Amazon and all the competitors ranked on page 1, you just get their ASIN and then target those as a manual product campaign. And then same thing, right? Broad match, down only bid, 30 cents. So that's the 2 campaign. But the last one, the gold panning campaign, you're going the opposite approach, which is instead of targeting like 15 relevant targets, you're just putting, it's still kind of relevant, but it's a bunch of keywords, right? You're saying it's like hundreds or 1,000 keyword in one campaign. And then how do you get the words, like targets for that one?
Sure, of course. So an easy way would be simply just to take your title, your description, any of your backend keywords. Of course, if you've got any reviews, you might use those words because people are going to use relevant words that describe your book in those comments, in those reviews. So that may get you to maybe 300 words. So we want to have individual, unique words, probably removing some of the like conjunctions and common words like a, the, in, all of those words probably not going to do you much good. Plus Amazon does remove those words from the ads anyway. So how do you go above that? Well, you could use tools like Publisher Rocket or other keyword research tools, which will just spit out hundreds of keywords for you. Of course, we just need to get relevant keywords. So I think there's the Google search tools, which you can also use. But very commonly, I would look at your, precisely, yes. I would look at the competitors. I mean, you're going to go on their pages anyway, just to see if they're completely relevant to your product, to your book. So as you're doing your product targeting research, you're going to open those pages. You've got the description there. So sometimes just copy those descriptions and then extract keywords from there. There are some free tools online you can use where you can just put in a bunch of words, just text, and it will remove duplicates and essentially spit out a clean list for you where you can just copy and paste, and that's your list of keywords. You don't have to get 1,000. I've usually sort of a few hundred is good enough. But if I've got a number of books and it just happens to have 800, okay, I'll just use 800.
Gotcha. So if I got a keto book and my book description says something like, this is a great ketogenic diet book. So would I just go and take this as one target, is one target, one target, great, one target? Like, are those each single words, the target for it? And then you just go hundreds of those in one campaign?
Essentially, yes. Ideally, you would look through them and remove words like is, a. So the extremely highly common words, probably remove the word book or Amazon or Kindle or like the very generic words. So ideally, you would stick to words which are like diet, keto, like beach or body or something like that. So those types of words which may be somehow related to what people are searching. But it would not really hurt you if you do have some words in there that are somewhat unrelated, even if it is the word this, because you're at 5 cents bid, it's extremely low risk. If there's a highly irrelevant word with a very low bid, it's just not going to do anything. So there's really no harm in adding it in.
Gotcha. Super interesting. So you get hundreds of that. I feel like you can use ChatGPT to find these words, like just have ChatGPT come up with one word phrase, like one word related words of keto, for example, like ask it to give me a list of 100 words related to keto or something, right? But just basically get that, or go to the Amazon listing, scrape that. And then so you put it at 5 cent bid, same thing, broad match, down only. And then the idea is essentially just getting leftover clicks, right? Like if all your competitors spend their daily budget, and then Amazon is still getting people searching for that keyword, and they're trying to place an ad for that search results, but all your competitors use up their budget, so that now Amazon is showing your ad, even at 5 cent bid. Is that the idea?
Exactly. So we are just sniping those few openings, spaces that we can put our ad into, because Amazon wants to show something. Even if it has nobody bidding at the time, it'll just show your book. That's why we can set up a very, very generic, broad campaign to try and snipe at those entries, of course. One point of clarification is this is the only one where we'll use fixed bids. So very low fixed bids, not down only. Down only on the other two,
Gotcha.
yes. Fixed bids on the GP campaigns.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I never tried out this campaign type, but you say that you have great success, right? Like you get really good ACOS every single time you use it.
Absolutely, yeah. So the results, I've pulled up the last 12 months. And of course, it's not going to spend millions and millions of ad spend, but the results have been, what, 33% ACOS on a sales of 85,000 over the last 12 months.
Damn.
So with zero maintenance, with the amount of effort it takes to set them up, I think this is a go-to campaign for all of the accounts that I work with.
Yeah, that's cool, because it's fixed bids. You're not even optimizing bids. So you just set it up 5 cent and you're done.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, that kind of answers the question. So basically, the number one question once again was, how do I approach Amazon ad on a low budget? So we just covered 3 campaigns that people can test out. So for those who are watching, definitely go and test it out and let us know how it does in the comment section. But I want to go back to the initial question in terms of the biggest struggles most publishers have with ads. Besides focusing too much on ACOS, do you see anything else people do, or is that pretty much it?
Of course. So as I said, the detail that Amazon ads requires and the amount of initial research and understanding can be overwhelming, which is why they would want to focus on ACOS, on the one metric. They may have a misunderstanding of what campaign types to use when. So if they start to use a very aggressive, very high bids, exact match, fixed bids in like day 3 after publishing their book, when they've only got 2 reviews, that's just going to spend all of the budget and maybe extremely expensive. So using the wrong campaign types at the wrong time. So yes, those are very useful if you just set up very aggressive exact match campaigns, if you need to rank for a particular keyword. But if you're on a limited budget, that's a very good way to just blow your budget. And so I would shift those to later, when your book is strong, when you've got more reviews, you just have a better detail page. Maybe you've added your A+ content and the book is as strong as it can be. Then you can go in and pay more for those more higher search volume keywords using those exact campaigns. That's going to be much better time to use those. So starting off initially with the more conservative, cheaper campaign types, and then as the book gets stronger, getting more and more aggressive with your advertising. And so mixing that up can be very expensive. So of course, a lot of the time people, if they've never done advertising before, don't know the pace of Amazon. Maybe they've done Facebook ads or some other platform, but they've never done Amazon ads. They might be coming in and checking them multiple times a day. So usually Amazon is quite slow or slower than many other platforms. So you probably don't need to go in like 6 times a day. But on the flip side, I do speak with people who will say, oh, I've set my ads up and I check them once a month. So just getting that cadence right, checking in a couple of times a week is the the Goldilocks pace, where some people will spend way too much time, others just let them go. And it's just finding that right cadence within your working schedule, where you're focusing on producing new books, maybe catering to your audience, your email list, and then just doing everything, fitting that in a couple of times a week is what I would recommend. And
Yeah. So I got a question on that, because that is a question that I get often, is how often should I be checking ads, right? So you said a couple times a week. So about 2 to 3 times a week is good.
Yeah, sure. I think if you're starting out and you're just launching a new book, it may be 3 times. And if you're, after a month, certainly after like 6 months, it may even just be 1 time checking in those particular campaigns. So depending on the book as well, you may not need to check your entire account. If you've got 5 books, 10 books, you may not need to look at the book you published a year ago, because those campaigns will be better established. You will have found the keywords that work for you, but you need to have a look at the books that you've just launched more closely.
Yeah, I agree with that. Amazon ads rarely spend the daily budget that you set anyways. So it doesn't really spend a ton of money unless it's like Q4 and you're bidding super high with super high budget. Then you should probably check every single day so you don't overspend, right? But it's just Q4. Besides that, we usually just check 2 to 3 times a week too. How much time should one spend every time they check? So, they check 2 to 3 times a week, but each time, how much time do they spend optimizing normally? Like, what's considered normal, you think?
Well, I think it
Would
would
that
certainly
differ?
depend on the number of books they have, the number of campaigns they set up. So if they use the strategies that we've just outlined, where they've only got 3, maybe 4 campaigns for every book, and they've only got 2 to 3 books, then their one check-in session may last half an hour. So they will look at the bids, look at the placement multipliers, look at the search terms that people are actually searching, maybe adding some negatives. So half an hour per session, twice a week. So that's an hour a week that would be sufficient.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's not bad starting off. Like, obviously, once you scale, you got a bunch of books. Each book has like a US campaign going, a UK campaign, Canada, and you got a bunch of campaigns going for every single book. Then it does get crazy. But if you just got a couple books, it's not that time consuming, right?
Of course, yes.
So
As you start to go out into the other marketplaces, this will 2x, 3x the amount of time required.
for sure. So what would you say? This was the second most asked question after the first one, which was how do I run ads on a low budget? The second most common question was, like, people don't even know where to start. So I guess we kind of answer that, because we covered where to start. We'll start with these 3 campaigns, right? The relevant keyword, relevant product, and the gold panning campaign. Besides that, like, what would you say to people who really don't know where to start and just need advice on that?
Of course, I mean, if you're watching this video, you've watched the other videos on the channel, you understand that ads are a must. But I mean, of course, it's just having that mindset that, okay, I will need to do some sort of advertising to get onto page 1, at least onto somewhere on page 1. Because really, I mean, if you're on Amazon, you're buying whatever product you may be buying. When was the last time you bought something off like page 5 or even page 2, right? You'll just end up usually purchasing off of page 1. So we need to get to page 1, and that's not going to happen without ads. So first point to understand is you will need some sort of advertising, and you will not need to have a super complex strategy. Simple can work. So those few campaigns, we may add a low bid auto campaign in there as like after a couple of weeks of running those initial 3. So we'll have 4. So it doesn't need to be very complex. And initially, if you're just getting starter, you just need to understand like what is a broad match, what is, you know, all of the basics, what are the different campaign types, what sort of advertising can I even do, like what are sponsored products, what are sponsored brands, like different campaign advertising types, like where do the ads actually show up. Just to get all of the basics, I can recommend going to the Amazon official learning console. So they've got very basic courses that I'm sure we can link to in the description of the video, where they can go through, just learn all of the basics and ensure that, you know, when they watch a video like this and someone says, oh, this is a broad match campaign, they know exactly what that means. And if I say, oh, we need to increase the placement multiplier, again, that's just a campaign level setting, and just means it shifts as to where your ad will show on the page. And so it's, the concepts are fairly simple without, you know, going into all of the different combinations that you may have once you reach, you know, 10K, 20K sort of level in ad spend. You really don't need to complicate it any more than what is presented in the learning console. And of course, I can also add a little bit more detail with a little page I've set up, which will run through how to navigate the Amazon Ads console and how to set up all of the different campaign types, of course, focusing on KDP relevant campaigns. And so all of the settings that we may be interested in will be covered in those 2 additional videos. Of course, they're much longer than what we would like to have in this video here. So if you're interested in that, if you just want to get started, Amazon Ads Learning Console and the 2 extra videos in the 2 additional links in the description, I would recommend going through those.
So the Amazon Ads mini course that they got, it's coming directly from Amazon, right? It's just like, you know, Google ad certificate, Facebook ad certificate, like all of them make their own version of little course just to cover the basics. So yeah, if you're really like clueless on where to get started, you don't even know what ACOS is, what is the bid, and, you know, how to set it up, then you should start there for sure, which I will leave a link below this video. The other link that you're talking about, I'm looking at the notes here, and I just realized you created like a page. Is that what it is? Like you created a page that covers 2 videos showing how to set up or going through the Amazon ad dashboard and how to create all campaign types. Is that the campaign types that we talked about just now?
Precisely, yes.
Nice. So I like that you named the URL Amazon Ads Masterclass with Sean Dowett. I had no idea you did that, but I guess I'll take the credit. I appreciate it. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's cool. So you have 2 videos people can go through for free. So I'll leave a link to this below the video as well then.
Yep. And yeah, you don't need to sign up or anything. It's just there for you. So have a look at those. They are in as much detail as necessary to get started, basically. So without going into any confusing terminology, it's just like you will need to know this, then you will be comfortable setting up every campaign type that we've discussed so far.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, looks good. Looks good. I'll definitely leave a link below this. And
thank you.
For now, I guess the next question that I had here is, so now we covered, you know, the best campaign types to get started with. And for those who don't really know where to start, obviously they're gonna, you know, go through those videos, learn the basics, and then they will go and test those campaign types, right? So now they're actually running some ads. And the next question is like, what do I do from here? You know, the ads are running. They're probably seeing some impressions, clicks, sales might be coming in. So optimization is the next question, right? So I guess the first question is like, how long do you want to wait until you start optimizing the campaign? So how long after you start running it do you go and start changing the bids and doing stuff like that?
Of course. So you don't want to, you know, go in, as I said at the beginning, like going in, you know, 6 times a day on day 1, because, I mean, initially you launch the campaigns, they will take a few hours even to get started, even to get like checked by Amazon. So once they're actually up and running, you'll get some impressions. So possibly a couple of days before like even anything will happen, where you will get a significant number of impressions. And by significant number, I mean per target. So if we have a campaign with 15 keywords, so I would look at each of those keywords individually, as opposed to looking at the campaign as a whole, because one thing to understand is campaigns don't spend money. It's the targets, it's the keywords. Those are the ones that are spending money. So we look at the keyword level and look at how many impressions are they getting. So it's not specifically an amount of time, because some keywords might take longer to get any impressions. Maybe they're high competition, so you'll need to bid higher before they'll even get any impressions. So, but some of them may be getting impressions straight away, even on a lower bid. So I would look at, the impressions first. Before we get to 1,000 impressions, I would normally just run those keywords, and then start to look at the number of clicks after we get to 1,000 impressions. So again, that may take a couple of days, that may take a week for different keywords. And then once we are over 1,000 impressions, we can start to look at the spend, the clicks, the sales, all of the other metrics. So first, impressions up to 1,000, then clicks. It depends on the cost of those clicks. So normally people talk about, okay, if you get 10 clicks, then do this, or 15 clicks, then do that. I look at it from a spend and sales or royalties perspective. So if your clicks are very cheap, you may want to leave them running a bit longer, even if you get 20 clicks. If each of them, like in our GP campaign, it doesn't matter if you get 10 clicks or 20 clicks, because each of those clicks is only costing you 5 cents. And even if you're not getting a sale, okay, the 21st click might get you a sale, and that would still be really profitable. But if your clicks are like 70 cents each, then you probably don't want to wait until you get 20 clicks and start decreasing the bid before you get there. So it's all relative to your book price, which is then working off your break-even ACOS, your margin. So if you're getting very expensive clicks, then I would probably start to drop the bid after you get to about sort of 40 or 50% ACOS, depending on the live stage of your book, of course. So as we discussed before, that number may be higher initially. So you may want to leave them running a little bit higher. So if, let's say, your book price is $15, if you're selling a paperback, then you may want to leave the spend going up to sort of $7 or $8, maybe half of the book price, because we also have to consider Amazon's printing costs and the cut that they will take from the sale of the book. So we don't want to go up to the book price itself, because you don't get the full price of the book as a royalty. You'll get less than that. And so we want to take it possibly up to your royalty. So let's just say your royalty is $6. I mean, that may be the limit that you want to take it up to before dropping down the bid initially when you're just launching, because the focus there is more on sales. So it does depend on the book price, the margin, but the initial threshold is 1,000 impressions.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. So I just want to make sure I understood that correctly. So instead of looking at like how many days after you start the campaign, should you wait before you optimize, instead of looking at it as days, you just look at the impressions, right? If a campaign has minimum 1,000 impressions, or once it hits 1,000 impressions, that's when you go in and start optimizing the bids, targets, etc. I also like what you said about how when a campaign is overspending or the ACOS is bad, it's not the campaign, but it's the individual targets inside the campaign, right? Because there's good targets. Even in the same campaign, you could have some targets that are performing really well and some targets that are doing really bad. And you just basically reduce the bids on the ones that are doing really bad, or pause that one, but you want to keep the ones that are doing good. A lot of people kind of freak out, and I used to do this too when I first started running ads. If a campaign had a really bad ACOS, or a huge spend, I would turn off the entire campaign, not realizing that I got some good keywords inside that are performing well. So instead, I should have just cut off the ones that are performing bad. It's a funny story, but I guess it's kind of a side story. True story too. I grew up in Japan, right? My grandpa or my grandparents had a farm in Japan, and we had persimmon trees. So as a kid, we all would go and climb the trees, and we helped them pick the persimmons. And they got a bunch of branches right from one tree, and then in one branch, there's a bunch of persimmons, and then some of them are bad. It's spoiled. The birds picked on it. It's pretty much like half dead, and then there's some healthy ones. And as we're picking the healthy persimmons, my grandparents would tell us to make sure to cut off the dead persimmons or the bad persimmons because you can't eat it anyways. And I would ask them, like, why not just leave it? Because if we're, like, why do we have to cut it off and just let it fall on the ground? Why not just leave it on the branch, right? And what they said is because if it's stuck on the branch, if it's still there, even if it's like half dead, the tree still sends the nutrients to the dead ones. And then because of that, the nutrient doesn't fully go to the good persimmons at the end of the same branch, right? So I feel like that's like the exact same analogy with Amazon has. Is like you got the nutrients or the daily budget, and then because you're running the bad targets, which is the bad persimmons, if you don't cut that off, the daily budget keeps sending to the bad ones and not to the good targets. If that makes sense, right? Or maybe it doesn't make sense. I don't know. Just thought it was like a very similar analogy there. But going back to what you said, 1,000 impressions is when you go in and you want to look at it as an individual target basis rather than the whole campaign. And you said instead of looking at how many clicks each target gets and then optimize it based on that, you look at the spend. Because if your profit per sale is $6, as an example, you want to make a sale. You want to make a sale within spending $6, right? Because if you spend more than $6 to make a sale and your profit is $6, then you're losing money. So you just kind of based on that, if that makes sense. So how would you, let's say you got a target that is, you spent $10 on this target and you made one sale, so you're way overspending, right? How would you adjust the bids? Do you turn it off? Do you pause the target? Do you just lower the bid? Like, what do you do there?
Sure, I would very rarely pause a target. So if it does for some reason, okay, you've created some campaigns, and you've spent I don't know 5 days away from the account, and it's run away from with the spend, and spend like $20 or $30 and zero sales. In that case, okay, yes, I would pause it just because it's want to make it as safe as possible. But normally I would just drop the bid if I'm keeping on top of it, and I see that we are getting above the $6, we're getting into the $10 range. Then I would just drop the bid. I would look at the CPC, and let's say our CPC, so that's cost per click, and Amazon gives you that metric as one of the reports that they present you in the console. Look at that number. Let's say it's 80 cents or something, and just drop it below that number to make sure that you don't advertise aggressively on it. So because you made one sale off of that target, there is potential for more sales. So I still want to continue to advertise on it, just not very aggressively. I want to make it safe, but still leave the door open for potentially more sales in the future. So we'll take the CPC, drop the bid below it, 20 or 30% below it. So if it's, let's say, 80 cents CPC, maybe you set it to 60 cents below it. As long as you're using down only bidding, Amazon is not going to go above what you've set. So it's inherently pretty safe and will unlikely continue to spend. I mean, if it does then still continue to spend, your CPC will come down because the bid you've set is lower. You can still just continue lowering the bid until you get to a sort of GP campaign setting where if you set it down to 5 cents, then that's almost the same as pausing the keyword, but still leaves the door open for some very cheap clicks.
Got it. So just to clarify, if you got a target that is overspending, you just want to reduce the bid, by like 5 cents at a time or so, and then you
Yep.
just come
Normally, you
back
will
every
be controlling 3 to
few
5
days.
cents every time you check in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't go crazy, dropping the bids by 10 cents, 20 cents. Just go 5 cents at a time. And then you monitor it, see if the ACOS goes down, the spend goes down. If it doesn't, you just drop it by 5 cents again. And that is how you adjust it every few days. That's
Yep.
correct. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
The only time I
Cool.
would significantly drop the bid or even pause it, as I said, if you get into a situation where it's spent like $20 or $30 or something much higher and has zero sales, then okay, we want to shut that off as quickly as possible. Then okay, drop it significantly down, maybe like half the bid or even less than half, or just pause the target.
Okay, cool. And if the target is doing well, so the ACOS is really low and you're making a ton of sales, it's performing well, then you want to scale that, right? By increasing the bid so that it spends more. And then that is also, you don't want to jack it up. You just want to do 5 cents each every few days and see how that goes. Slowly increase it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So the same goes for increasing and decreasing, and there is a couple of additional strategies you could use if you've got a really, really good keyword. If let's say you've got 10 orders or more off of this one particular keyword, then it may be a good idea to extract it and create its own campaign for it. So you just have that one keyword in that one campaign, um, and that allows you to then really focus on it, give it more budget, give it more room to breathe. So you've just got the one branch with the one golden persimmon on it. So you want to give as much life to it as possible.
Yeah, I'm trying to just kind of summarize everything you said, so that we got like an easy to follow rule, for people those who are watching this like a complete beginner with Amazon ads, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just to summarize everything that it's like, you start off with the campaigns that we mentioned, you wait until it has 1,000 impressions, and then you optimize based on the spend. If you're spending more than how much you make per sale, then you want to reduce the bids by 5 cents each. And then you do that every few days until you see that, your ACOS has dropped, and it's in the profitable or at least break even range. Then you can keep it at that. If it keeps spending and spending, you keep reducing the bids, but you can't control the spend. That's when you just pause it, right? Pause the target and then move on to the next one. If you have targets that are doing well, then you increase the bid by 5 cents so that you spend more on that because it's converting well and you're making sales and you're profitable. So that's like the general gist of like the optimization rules, right? Okay. So
Precisely.
there's some
There are no complex formulas. It's simple movements up and down, increasing, decreasing the bids, 3 to 5 cents. Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing that people need to understand is because I get this question all the time too. Is it seems like people think there's this one magic formula on how you set up ads that literally if you do this campaign at this bidding at this target at exactly how many targets you have, at if you set it up on Saturday at 10:59 p.m. targeting this, you know what I mean? This magic one formula, if you set it up that way, it'll work for every single book in every single niche out there. And unfortunately, it's not like that, right? It's constant testing that you have to do. And it's simply like testing out different campaigns. If it works, you keep it. If it doesn't, you either optimize it or you just pause it and then you just go from there, right? So another thing people got to realize is ads is not a set it and forget it thing. Once again, there's no magic campaign that you can just set it up once and then you just never touch it again. You have to constantly tweak it every couple times a week. And that's exactly why it's not a lot of work if you're just getting started and if you only have a couple books, but it becomes a lot of work if you try to scale and if you got more books, right? And that's why I think outsourcing Amazon ads is like one of the first things you should outsource in your publishing business, especially if you're like at least making, like if you're not making money, obviously you don't want to outsource, you want to do it yourself, learn how it works, right? But if you're making a couple $100 a month or more, then I think that's the first thing you want to do is to outsource so that you can go and focus on more high priority task, like publishing more books and getting reviews rather than just going into your ad dashboard and doing this micro optimization every couple of days for an hour or two at a time, So I guess the next question is like the common troubleshooting when it comes to campaigns. We got issues like I get questions like my campaigns are not getting any impressions. What do I do? I'm not getting any clicks. What do I do? It's very low sales, stuff like that. So like, let's start off with the low impressions. So you started the campaign, but you're not getting any impressions, and the campaign has been running for, let's say, like a week or two. Like, what do you think is the issue, and then how do you solve that?
Of course. So just need to identify like what is actually going on there. So you've started the campaigns, basically nothing is happening, not Amazon not even showing it. So if you're getting, so there's a difference between 0 impressions and low impressions. So maybe 50 or 100 impressions or something on a target. So if you're at zeros across the board of everything, then I would look at the book itself and think, is this book actually allowed to be advertised? Because there are some book types that Amazon will not allow you to advertise. And of course, that's all in their on their like terms and conditions pages. So there is some guidance to it. There's basically like anything to do with 18+ content, sort of violence, and any of those types of books, plus some medical style books where you're promising the cure to cancer or something in your title, probably will not be allowed to be advertised. So there are some books like that if you're getting just zeros everywhere. And sometimes, most of the time, they will like terminate or suspend the ad, where it will just show like a campaign is not delivering, and in the ad portion it will say, okay, this is not eligible to be advertised. Great. In about 1 case out of 10, they will just let it run and it looks like everything is fine, but it will just not deliver because it's in one of those categories, and they don't tell you that does happen. So that's some fringe cases, but that does happen. In most cases, if you're getting a low number of impressions, so like 10, 20, just 50, because we're shooting for 1,000. If you're a very low number, then I would look at the keyword relevance. So if your book is keto diet book, as you gave an example earlier, and you're like advertising on the word, what did we have, gardening or persimmon or something earlier, then they're not really highly related, especially if you've only just launched your book. Amazon will probably not show those ads. So if it's completely irrelevant keyword, then it's likely that they will not show very much at all. And so it may simply be that you have very low bids. So if you do have a keto diet book and you advertise on the word keto diet as an exact campaign, for example, then at something like 20 cents or 30 cents, that may just be too low a bid to get into the auction for that highly coveted, high traffic keyword. You simply just need to increase your bid.
Gotcha. So either if you're not getting any impressions, you're either targeting keywords or products that's completely unrelated, or you're targeting related keywords or products, but your bids are way too low.
Yep.
So then the solution would be to simply confirm the targets, make sure it's relevant, and then increase bids. Right?
Yes, precisely.
Okay. So then so the next step will be that you increase the bids, impressions are coming in, but you're not getting any clicks. So people are seeing your ads, but no one's clicking on it. What is the issue and how do you solve that?
Of course, yep. So within every stage of the process, we look at relevance. So if a person is seeing the ad, but they're not clicking on it, which means that the book that they're looking for, the keyword that they've typed in and your book are not congruent, right? So if they are looking for a keto diet book and you're advertising, you're showing and advertising on the keyword like something like Beachbody or something, which is somewhat related, Amazon may show that, but they're more looking for like a workout book. They'll look at it and just pass it over because they're looking for a workout book, not a diet, a keto diet cookbook maybe. So it may just be the connection and relevance. So that's a thing to consider at every stage. Of course, we'll have to look at what are they actually seeing in the ad. So the ad shows the book cover, the title, the reviews, and the price. So it's probably one of those components that you could tweak if you are struggling to get any spend or any clicks. So it may be low number of reviews, or the cover is not appealing, or perhaps a lot of the time I will see a cover that's completely white with some limited text in the cover, for example. It just blends into the page. It's sort of, you almost can't see it on the page. So people might pass that over, even if you think the cover is effective. If you've got it in your hand, on the ad on the screen, it may not look as effective as a physical copy. Or maybe be just your price is like twice the amount of your competitors. So they'll see it, oh, it's expensive, and pass it over.
Makes sense. That's why I don't like white covers, by the way, because it blends in with the Amazon white background.
Yeah.
But you're right. So if you're getting impressions, but no one's clicking on it, then obviously the attractiveness of the book is probably the issue, right? The cover's not attractive. You got no reviews or bad reviews. The price is way too high, something like that. So let's say you fix that. Now people are clicking on the book, but not getting sales. So somehow they're on the product page, but they're clicking away. Like what would be the next step then?
Right. So they've made it to the product page. They dig in a little bit deeper into the details of your book, and then they don't buy, which means they either navigate away to a different page or they close Amazon, and that's it. So the thing to consider is what extra information has now made them lose interest. So now they've seen the description, which I didn't see before. They've seen the book preview. So they might have used the look inside feature and had a look at the formatting of the book. They may have looked at the whole page and seen other books which are advertising on your book detail page and clicked on one of those and navigated away. So they may have also looked at the reviews and read through the text, because on the ad, they don't see any of the text. They just see the ratings and the number of reviews. So they may have gone down and actually looked at the words or what people are actually saying. Or maybe you've got a video review and they've looked through the video and didn't like the formatting or something. So any of those components could be an issue. So as you said earlier, it is a case of testing and then iterating, repeating, improving the book as much as possible, using any of the reviews that you get as feedback, and then going to improve the book. So if you've got all of those components that you can easily check sorted, the one that's a little bit more difficult to control is other people's ads on your book. So if you've got lots of other books with thousands of reviews advertising on your book detail page, they might click on your ad, get to your page, scroll down, see the other ads, and then click on one of those, navigate away. So how do you remedy that? You would ideally like to fill your own book page with your own other books. Of course, you need to have 7, 8, 10 books to be able to do that. But ideally, you would be able to have a brand or a collection of books that you can advertise on their own pages. So each book is advertising on your own books very aggressively. So there you can set very high bids, because once somebody's clicked on your ad, they've got into your ecosystem. You want to keep them there so that if they click away, they click onto one of your other books. So that's a little bit of a strategy for later on down the line when you've got extra books, but that's can be very powerful.
Interesting. So you're willing to spend, like, you're willing to target your own books with your other books just so that you can show up in the sponsored products list on the product page, so that your competitors cannot, even though that could mean that you're spending money to get sales to your other book when you could have made that organically, right? Because if you got multiple books, your customer can go and click on the author page and find your other books, or if it's linked as a series, they can find it organically, right? So you could have made free sales, but it will increase the chance of them clicking on the sponsored listing, and you will have to pay for that. But you think it's worth doing that than having your competitor take over the sponsored listing on the product page then?
Absolutely. I think even if it costs me an extra in a couple of clicks, if a person is already interested in the brand, and hopefully if you release several books, they'll all be congruent with the same sort of formatting, the same sort of style. So they've already liked something about your book. So they'll probably like the others as well. And so even if it takes you a couple of extra clicks to keep that one person, I would rather get that sale than not, because that's going to increase my ad sales. That's going to increase my ad indexing. Organic indexing is just going to snowball into more people seeing my books, seeing their brand, and going to improve the performance of all of the books, as opposed to them clicking away and somebody else getting that sale.
Got it. Makes sense. Yeah, it's an interesting strategy. I never thought about that before, but I have to go and test it out. Overall, though, I do think like this is the cool part about running ads is that you get feedback from the market very quickly, right? You know, if you're not getting low impressions or you're getting low clicks or low sales, that kind of tells you where the issue is happening. So once again, to recap everything, if you're not getting any impressions or low impressions, it's either you're targeting targets that are like not related to your book, or you're not bidding enough. But then if you start getting impressions and no one's clicking on it, then now it's kind of a book issue, like book attractiveness issue, right? Because people are seeing your books, but they're not clicking on it. So maybe the reviews are bad, the covers are bad. What else? Like the price are super high, right? So you fix that, and then now people are clicking on the book. So the first impression is good, but then they click on the book, get to the product page, and now they're reading the book description. They're looking at the A+ content or no A+ content. They're reading through more reviews, and then something there is turning people away if you're getting a lot of clicks and no sales. So it's cool that like Amazon ad kind of tells you where the issue is in your book, and you can fix your book accordingly, and then kind of adjust that. So that's kind of the optimization method. And thank you for sharing that. So with that being said, I kind of want to transition into
Before we
the
move on,
rapid fire.
sorry, one last
Yeah.
thing, just to sort of summarize it. So the link we referred to earlier, the one I've set up, the third resource there is a table, a screenshot, an image which you can save on your computer somewhere for reference, which just gives you all of the possible scenarios. So like low clicks, low impressions, low clicks, low spend. And so if you have like low, high, low, 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 high, 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 so like every possible scenario, what is actually going on? What's like the customer psychology at that point? And then what does that mean and what to do about it? So a entire landscape on one sheet of what to do in every possible scenario with your Amazon ads.
That's super helpful. And I'm looking at the page right now. So once again, thanks for doing that. So for those who are watching, right, basically Yvonne created a whole new page on his website just for this video, just for this Q&A that we're doing. And we got 2 free videos, which is like 30 minutes each, on walking you through the advertising console. And I wish I can show this screen. I just don't know how screen share translates when I'm like recording this Zoom call. So I'll just leave a link below this video. But the second video is on creating a sponsored products campaign, literally walking you through it. And then below that, you got the whole different scenarios and what to do about it. So what we just talked about, but in a whole like easy to read table. So very, very helpful. Thanks for doing that, man.
Absolutely.
All right. So the next section I got a list of questions that people ask. It's kind of more technical, but it's a frequently asked question. So we're just going to go rapid fire because we do have quite a bit of questions. It's actually a lot. So I don't know if we're going to cover all of this, but starting with the first one, like what's the current best practice for the number of keywords to set in an Amazon ad campaign?
I would say up to 30 keywords, unless you're talking about the GP campaigns, those are special. So for normal campaigns, anywhere more than 30 keywords, just set up a new campaign. So if you want, to have 50 keywords, set up 2 campaigns, one with 30 and 20 or 25, 25, because those will run better than just having one huge campaign with hundreds of keywords.
Gotcha. So 30 max, 30 highly relevant targets.
Yep.
All right. Question number 2. What budget is considered viable? Like how much budget should you have before starting Amazon ads?
Ideally, I would like to have at least $500 per marketplace. If you want to run the strategy that we discussed earlier, where we've got broad and product targeting and perhaps an auto campaign, your GP campaign. So those will spend several hundred if you're just doing it as we've discussed, even starting at 30 or 40 cent, fairly low bids. But even if you're more budget limited than that, just having like $100 a month budget, just running your GP campaigns is still going to be beneficial. So it's ideally 500 plus, but can start with even lower if you use the right campaign types.
Yeah. And that's what I say all the time too, is people ask, or people say you got to spend thousands of dollars, but oftentimes it's like just, even with the most competitive, there's other YouTubers that made case studies of this, to rank in one of the most competitive low content keywords. His name is Chris Raydog. Shout out to him because he makes good videos. But he did a case study on how he ranked on page 1 of, I forgot which keyword, but one of like the puzzle books keyword, with just like $50 spent or something like that. So you don't have to spend a ton. $100 a month is $3 a day or a little over that, right? So I think a lot of people are overinflating how much you have to spend on ads. Obviously, if you got 500, that is ideal because you can test out different strategies, but it's very flexible, I would say. So question number 3 is, can you recommend a strategy for boosting new books right after publishing? So this is the launch Amazon ad campaign strategy.
Right. So here our focus is away from being thrifty and low budget friendly to try and really boost performance on a particular book. So there we need to get associated with some high traffic keywords, and there I would like to focus on specific keywords. So I would, well, of course, the first thing I would do if we are talking about launch is get at least 5 to 10 reviews as quickly as possible. So we don't want to start advertising if you're just at 0 reviews. So focus on those first, and ideally aim to get to like 50 reviews in the first month. Then you can relax a little bit after that. But I would identify the first 5 main keywords that you would like to target, that you definitely want to appear on page 1 for. And I would create 5 single keyword campaigns, which we talked about a little bit earlier, where you just have the one branch with the one golden persimmon, where you have 5 campaigns with 1 keyword in each of those campaigns. So the amount of time you would need to manage them is still the same because it's just 5 keywords. You just have to have 5 tabs open. And I would start with something like a 50 cent bid, but I would and I would start with a 50% uplift on the top of search placement multiplier. So if you're not familiar with what that is, please look through the training videos which I have on the page which I've set up that make it obvious. But the idea there is to increase the amount of the bid that goes towards specifically the top of search, which is right at the top of, when you search for a keyword, the very top products that come out. So you want to focus more on that placement so that your book appears in that location. So we want to give more budget, more attention to that placement. We'll increase that by 50% and start with fixed bids if we definitely want to rank on those keywords. In doing so, then will give us a lot of traffic and then sort of jumpstart the ranking process.
Okay. So this is a whole new strategy that we didn't cover yet on this call, right? So it's essentially, I mean, if you're just getting started with Amazon ad, you probably have no idea what we're talking about because it's kind of a advanced new campaign that we're doing. But basically, you said that what you want to do for the launch is, the whole goal with the launch is to rank on your main keyword. So if your book is ketogenic diet, then you want to rank in the keyword ketogenic diet, top of page 1. If your book is word search, summer word search, you want to rank on top of summer word search, right? So what you do is you identify 5 keywords such as summer word search for kids, word search for adults, or whatever like relevant keywords, like try and find 5 of them. And then you will have a campaign, you will separate that in one, each campaign. So you'll have 5 campaign with literally just 1 keyword each. And then you said you would, what was the bid? 50 cents? 50-cent bid?
Just start there, yeah, and then go up from there again, in line with what we
Okay.
were talking about previously, 3 to 5 cents, depending on the performance.
And then you will do a 50% top of search placement, which is basically saying I'm going to spend 50% more on the bid to have the top of search, like basically the ad placement you get on top of page 1. And that's the setup. And the goal is, once again, to, launch the book and rank it in the most relevant keywords possible. So that is the launch campaign. Did I summarize everything correctly?
Yep, exactly right. So fixed bids, 50% start, 50% uplift. And we have the point is to rank on those keywords, especially if we're launching. We're focused more on the traffic, the sales, as opposed to getting a amazing 20% ACOS. We're focused more on just getting throughput, getting sales. If the question is talking about boosting your books, so there we need to focus on velocity.
Okay. So the next question is, what is the difference between exact phrase and broad match? And I guess like the pros and cons are like, when should you use, a broad match? When should you use a phrase match? When should you use exact match?
Of course, yeah. So the three keyword match types that Amazon provides us. I mean, if we want to keep things really simple, we can almost remove phrase match, because it's something which I've done quite a bit of testing with, phrase match versus broad match, etc. And essentially, broad match does everything that phrase match does, oftentimes a bit cheaper and more efficiently. So essentially, we can put phrase match to the side, just look at exact and broad. Those two are enough, especially if we're just getting started. So broad match is usually cheaper, but it requires a little bit more monitoring, because it will generate some extra keywords that sprout off of that one main keyword. So if you just type in keto diet as your broad match keyword, you may come up with keywords like beginners keto diet, or keto diet for women, or something like that. So other search terms, you will need to keep an eye on those and maybe add some negatives. So it's cheaper, but requires a bit more attention. Exact match will advertise only on that exact keyword or its plural variant. So much less time spent on maintenance, because you won't have a bunch of keywords or search terms to look at, but they are generally more expensive. So we use those to target very specific keywords once your book is more established.
Got it. Yeah, I never use phrase match ever. It's basically just broad and exact. So broad is, if you type in ketogenic diet on a broad match, Amazon will not only show your ad to people who typed in ketogenic diet, but also related terms like ketogenic diet cookbook, ketogenic diet recipes, those kind of things. And then exact is basically customers have to search ketogenic diet to see your ads. No other variations, they'll see it, right? So essentially, if you're researching which target will work for your ads, you'll use broad match. And then once you identify, all right, ketogenic diet cookbook, that keyword is performing really well, then you will create a new campaign with just exact match, because you know it works. So that is how you scale from there. Right? At least that's how
Absolutely.
I do it, which I learned from you. So I'm assuming that's how you do it.
Absolutely.
But cool. So the next question we got is, let's see. I'm gonna skip a few because I feel like we covered some of this. Oh yeah, okay. So this one right here, what is considered a good click-through rate for Amazon ads? This is something I actually get quite often. So what is a good CTR?
Yep. So I do get this question a lot as well. And it's something which I normally took from FBA and thought that, okay, so it's 0.5%. And at one time I thought, well, where does this 0.5% come from? So I went in, looked at my actual KDP data and thought about, well, what am I looking for? Do I just want to sort of get a pretty number to say, oh, my CTR is really high and that's great? Well, no, I'm mostly interested in what is working, what is profitable. So having set up a cross analysis of all of the ads that have run ever historically, the interesting thing was it's fairly simple, where the CTR, as long as it's above 0.1%, then it can be profitable. So it's profitable all the way up from there, essentially. So it may surprise some people where like, oh, you've got a really low click-through rate. That means that it's not going to be successful. Well, actually, in the data that I have, as we covered earlier, like at this point, managing $2.5 million worth of ad spend, it seems that at any CTR you can be profitable. So as long as it's above 0.1%, I'm happy with it and will continue to advertise. So actually, in an easy way to
0.1%.
relate to that metric is 1 click in 1,000 impressions. So if you've got, if you go over, because earlier we were talking about our initial threshold of 1,000 impressions. So if you go over to 1,000, like 1,500, and you have 0 clicks, so even if you get 1 click at the next impression, your click-through rate or CTR is going to be lower than 0.1%. It's probably telling you that the relevance is not there, but something is wrong with that target.
Got it. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. So basically, you want to get at least 1 click every 1,000 impressions.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So next question is, how do I improve my situation if my ad spend is higher than my royalties? So if I'm spending more on ads than how much I make back, how do you go about fixing that?
Right. So this will touch on some of the stuff we've covered when we were talking about, the different stages of problems, the different like low impressions, high impressions, low clicks, etc. So that situation may be okay if you're just launching your book. So initially, I'm more concerned with just getting sales throughput. So I may be comfortable with just losing a little bit of money overall in the first month or so while I'm launching the book. But once you get into month 2, 3, and on from there, you would look at, of course, like the relevance of the keywords, and if the CPC is very high, if they're very expensive clicks, anything above like $1, $1.20, I would say is pretty high, specifically for paperbacks. Then I would look at using longer tail keywords. So if our book is keto diet, then maybe not advertising or targeting the word keto diet, because that's very high traffic, very expensive keyword. Might look at longer tail keywords, which means looking at keywords which are like keto diet for women, if my book is actually geared towards women, or something a bit longer. And of course, you can get these suggestions from the Amazon search bar, where if you just type in keto diet, it'll give you a number of options. And there are plugins you can use which will expand that view. I think, was it AMZ Suggestion Expander, a free plugin you can use to give you lots of ideas. So look at those keywords if you need to get lower CPC. And if you're getting lots of clicks but no sales, I would look at the book detail page, as we discussed earlier. Consider what you can improve about it. So to cover the description, reviews, A+ content, etc.
Got it. So basically, you want to just increase conversions, right? Like if you're getting too many clicks before you make a sale, and that's why you're overspending. If you can make a sale with fewer clicks, then obviously you will spend less. So how do you do that? Well, you just got to increase conversion, which is making more attractive cover, better description, more reviews so that customers trust you quickly. A+ content would help too. And also, on top of increasing the conversions, you can also be able to afford to spend more. So you could keep spending the same amount, but if you're making more from each customer, then you can afford to spend that. How do you do that? Well, you can increase your book price so that now each sale you're making more. And so like now you can afford to spend more on ads and still be profitable. Or, instead of like increasing the individual book price, if you can offer multiple books, like if you got a word search book, obviously if you create similar books, so now people come and buy one of your book and then they go and buy other books. Now you're making so much more from the same customers. So, you can afford to spend more on ads, right? So there's a couple different approaches you can take, or you can simply like target a less competitive keyword on ads, so you're not spending so much as well. So I want to touch on this real quick. What should I do if Amazon's suggested bids are too high? Because I get this all the time. People say the suggested bid I get from Amazon is like $1 or more. So what do you tell them?
In that case, I would, well, Amazon doesn't always get it right in every respect. So they essentially, I would ignore those suggested bids and just start with a lower bid that you're comfortable with, because Amazon doesn't analyze every possible iteration, every possible book and how it will do on a particular keyword. So have a go. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is if you start with a low bid and the suggested bid is very high, is nothing. Nothing is going to happen. You will not spend any money, and okay, you may find out that in the end it is actually required to bid that high, but okay, just start lower, because you may find that the campaign will work at a lower level. So ignore them first, have a go, and if you indeed find that nothing happens, then look at longer tail keywords as we discussed earlier.
So just start with a lower bid. Just ignore the suggested bid.
Yep. A lot of the time I will. I mean, if I'm running the ads, for clients, then I very rarely look at the suggested bid. I'll do what I think is a good idea, and then if it aligns or misaligns with the suggested bid, it really doesn't matter, because I want to see actual results as opposed to Amazon's best guess.
Yeah, and the suggested bids are often way, way higher than what you actually need to have your ads seen. So I just have two more questions here in the rapid fire section. One is, a lot of people are watching this are doing low content, medium content. So how do I handle high competition niches like the coloring book? If they're doing coloring books, what will be the best approach?
Right. Yes. Coloring books. So we're looking at fairly low price, fairly low margin. So Amazon have made it a bit more difficult recently by increasing the printing costs, and so we should consider that, of course. Like, definitely work out your margin, how much you can spend on ads. So we were talking about the break-even ACOS earlier. We're talking about what is your royalty after Amazon take their cut and printing costs, etc. So definitely keep that in mind, because it can make advertising a little bit more difficult if you have a low margin. You can't spend so much on ads. You should understand the seasonal variability of this niche and have a good game plan for gathering reviews. Of course, you don't want to go in advertising aggressively with only 2 or 3 reviews or something. So the question was about coloring books specifically. So we need to consider what's important to the customer there. So the worst scenario for us is to create the ad, create the books, go through all of the cost and effort, put them up, create the ads, and pay for the click, and then the customer navigates away, right? Like, you pay for the click, don't get the sale. So we need to consider, how can we improve conversion rates? What's actually important to the customer? So I would say that the coloring book niche, the 2 most important factors are probably the price and the design of the pictures inside to be colored. So like, why are they buying the book? So I would research the prices of your competitors and ensure that you're not like too high, or you probably will not be able to go too low. But certainly, if everybody else is pricing their books at $9.99, you don't want to be at $19.99. You want to be somewhere plus minus $2-3 at a similar range. Certainly test it. It is a viable strategy to just increase your price by $1, which will add to your royalties, which will add to your ability to advertise. So definitely worth testing, but we don't want to be 2x or any higher than that. I would focus on looking at the A+ content within the book page. So once they've landed on your page, you want to give them all the reasons to actually make the purchase. So show them how good the book is. Very colorful and expansive A+ content to show how good the pictures are inside, if we're specifically talking about coloring books. So you give them all the reasons to make the purchase. So use all of the tools that Amazon gives us. So that's the reviews, the editorial reviews, the A+ content. Make that really appealing, showing them exactly what they're going to get, because they are looking for printed paper with pictures, essentially. So we want to make sure that they understand how good those pictures are.
So increase conversions with a really nice A+ content, kind of the same concept as what we talked about earlier, but applied to coloring books. Just an attractive cover, A+ content, description, and reviews to increase conversions. And probably you want to increase price a little bit. Then you're like, I feel like the low content, medium content space, everybody just, make the same book and they just price it lower. And that's the only competitive advantage they have, is just we got a lower price. And that's not the approach you want to do, because everybody's just racing to the bottom and no one's making money, right? What you want to do is instead to actually make a better book than the market, and then you price it higher. So now, you stand out because you got a better book, but also you got a higher profit margin so that you can spend more on ads and just stand out that way. I think that'll be a way better approach for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, last question. Does turning off Amazon ads affect the organic ranking of my book?
I would say so, yes. So the more sales you generate, the more keywords you'll be indexed for. And so the more people will see your book, leading to more sales. And it's, a positive reinforcement loop. So more sales, more reviews, and more indexing, show up in more places, more sales again. So if you remove the ad sales portion of the equation, because Amazon will look at your total sales, whether they come from ads or whether they come from organically. They'll look at the number of sales and the sales history that your book has. So now if we remove all of the ad sales from this equation, the sales velocity will drop, your overall sales number will drop. So that is likely to then negatively impact the organic keyword indexing, which will mean you'll show up in fewer places, which means that fewer people see your book. And so it will negatively impact the overall performance.
I agree. Do you agree that Amazon doesn't really know, or at least they don't tell the difference between organic sales and Amazon ad sales? A sale is a sale, whether it's from ads or organic. And it's simple. It's as simple as, if somebody search for the keyword ketogenic diet, buy your book, then your book will move up in the ketogenic diet keyword. If somebody search for your book, typing in keto cookbook, and then find your book and buy it, whether that's from ads or organic, it moves up, right? So you just want to get a bunch of sales to relevant keywords. You can basically control that with ads, and then you move up. And as you move up the organic placement, obviously the organic sales will increase because now people are finding your books more, and you get that, and that'll keep, like, it's like this positive cycle that it keeps going and going and going. But you have to start the snowball with ads. Or it doesn't have to be ads, social media marketing. There's a lot of ways to get traffic, but ads is like the easiest way to control the indexing and which keyword you want to rank for, because obviously you can just target the keyword you want to rank for, right? But anyways, those are all the questions. So I feel like this call covered a lot of things, some technical, some good for beginners. I think the main thing I want people to understand is that there's no magic formula, but it is something that you just have to constantly test. And it's great to learn the basics, and you want to do it at first, of course, but it is pretty tedious as you publish more books and start testing out different markets and stuff. So once again, is if you're trying to build a business, it's like the first thing you want to outsource to open up a lot of time for yourself, as well as just you want to kind of hire an expert. And that's why AsDroid is something that I recommend all the time. But can you tell us about your service, about AsDroid, a little bit more? Basically, I'm curious, like the price point. What is the service about? What's your ideal customer? Like, who do you like working with? Because obviously, if there's a complete beginner with one book, or someone with two books but don't have any money to spend on ads, they can come to you, but you can't really do anything with that, right? So what's your ideal customer? Who should work with you? Those kind of things.
Right, of course, and thank you very much. I would love to have a unlimited budget, as we joked about earlier, of course, but realistically speaking, somebody who is, of course, dedicated, because the first thing is to know about the services. Yes, of course, we will handle the ads portion, from keyword research to campaign creation, looking at all of the marketplaces, in different languages, all of the components on the ad side we will do. So if you have a new book to launch, as an example, all you would need to do is send us the ASIN, and we will do everything else. Find the keywords, create the campaigns, optimize them, and then use the right strategies at the right time to launch the book, to then focus more on profitability, etc. So everything we've discussed here we will do on this side, alleviating your time and focus so that you can get more books out, use your time and mind space for higher value add tasks, basically. So the entry level price for the service is $749 USD. And the way that we apply that, for most people, will be able to cover their entire book portfolio in every marketplace at that baseline cost. Of course, if you come in with 100 books, then we might have to have a different conversation there. But for most people, for most publishers, if you have sort of 3, 5, 10 books, then that baseline pricing applies. Publish a new book, the baseline pricing still applies without increases. And so it's essentially two ways of approaching it for the sort of mass market, the individual publisher, and the big publishing house. So that's the main division that we have. So ideally, you would be able to apply at least $500 worth of ad spend per marketplace. So if you wanted to advertise in the US and Canada, then you would have 500 allocated to each, at least, ideally more, of course. And if you have only a couple of books, it may be difficult for the service to make sense. But if you get to sort of 5+ books, then it starts to make a lot of sense.
Yeah. If you got 5 good books in a good niche, the idea of outsourcing ads or pretty much any other task, but is, the idea is not only it'll free up time for you, but you should be making back more in increased revenue from running ads properly than, rather than trying to figure it out yourself. So you have to think in a way that, yes, you're spending money outsourcing this, paying for the service, but hopefully you're making way more back because the service is doing a good job and you're making a lot more sales, right? And then you have more time too. So win-win. But if people want to learn more about the service, then where should people go?
Adsdroid.com. The website will have all the information, and of course you can reach out at the email. It's adsdroid@adsdroid.com, keeping things very, very simple. Next steps is you can go to the website, read through our approaches, more detail, all of our testimonials, etc., and book a call from the website. We can look at everyone who thinks that this may be a good fit for them, and even if it doesn't end up being a good fit, we don't end up working together, I'm sure we can go in more detail with your ads specifically to have a bit of a deeper dive on your specific situation and figure out the next steps for you. Because ideally, I would like to take everybody, bring them up to a point where they are comfortable with signing up with us, and so that get them up to $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 dollars worth of ad spend, where it does make sense for them to use the services. So whatever stage you may be at, if you're interested in something like this, I'm sure we can figure out the next steps for you, even if you are at 2 books, 3 books. Okay, what do I do next? We can have a deeper dive within your specific account.
Got it. Sounds good. So they can book a free strategy call. I'll leave a link below this video for that as well as the other page that you set up with the free video and the table. So, but anyways, yeah, thanks for doing this. It's like almost 2 hours, I think, that we're doing this call. Hopefully we covered everything, all the major questions that people had on my channels, in the comment section, all that. So is there anything else you want to add before we end this?
Well, first of all, just as a thank you to you, Sean, for giving me the opportunity to speak about ads. It's something that I'm obviously very passionate about. It's something I can discuss for hours and hours and hours, as you've now found out. And I think that we've had to skip a whole bunch of these rapid fire questions, so we could go in very, very deep into it. There is a lot of complexity, but it's something that you should definitely not be scared of. And a lot of the time, it's you can just go in and just have a go, spend the $10, $20, and then you're actually learning from your own experience, which is always better to do. So advertising is something that's necessary, but does not need to be complex or difficult if you're just starting out.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Yeah, and obviously everything I learn when it comes to ads, I pretty much learned from you. So thank you for teaching me initially, and now I'm just teaching others, that too. But yeah, guys, so I'll leave a link to Azdroid below. Check it out, and thank you so much for watching. If you made it till the end, leave a like, comment any comments, or if you have further questions, maybe I'll have Yvonne back for the next one and we can answer that. But subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.